Imagine a world where the ground itself is your enemy. The trenches of World War I stretched over 400 miles from the English Channel to the Swiss border, a gash carved into the earth by men who would spend months living within them, like moles. The mud in places like Passchendaele was so thick that men and horses disappeared into it entirely. The sound of artillery never truly stopped. It became permanent weather that soldiers learned to sleep through out of sheer necessity. But within this mechanized nightmare, something remarkable kept surfacing. Soldiers on opposite sides of the wire would find themselves sharing bread, exchanging cigarettes, or pulling an enemy from the mud that threatened to drown him. Tonight on Fieldcraft Chronicles, we go into that world, not just to understand the history, but to uncover the forgotten fieldcraft that kept men alive when everything around them was designed to kill. Section 1. The Trench as a Living System, reading The Ground. The first lesson every soldier learned was that the trench was an engineered ecosystem. Drainage was life. Standing water bred the trench foot that rotted soldiers' feet inside their boots, sometimes requiring amputation. Soldiers dug sump pits at the lowest points of their sections and prized duckboards above almost any other possession. Walls were reinforced with sandbags, wicker revetments woven from branches, or corrugated iron scavenged from destroyed farms. Read the ground, work with it, reinforce it, and never assume it will hold. Section 2. The Art of Staying Warm, Improvised Shelter in the Killing Zone. When temperatures dropped below freezing, soldiers developed improvised layering systems long before the term existed. Hay and straw were stuffed into boots as insulation. Newspaper, when dry, was an extraordinary insulating layer, a technique valid in modern bushcraft today. Small braziers fashioned from ammunition tins burned anything available, but produced carbon monoxide in enclosed spaces. Men died in their sleep, and so the critical lesson, ventilation even in the coldest conditions, became passed down fieldcraft, whispered from veteran to new arrival on both sides of the wire. Section 3. Water and Food, Foraging and Rationing at the Front. The shell-churned landscape filled every crater with a soup of rainwater, mud, and biological contamination. Soldiers learned water discipline, rationing strictly, never drinking until genuinely necessary, and boiling water over a brazier during any lull. They improvised filters from uniform caps packed with charcoal and sand. Chlorination tablets, issued from 1915 onward, became survival tools rather than bureaucratic requirements. During informal truces, British and German soldiers traded food across the wire, bully beef for sausage, hardtack for rye bread, driven entirely by the universal desire for something that tasted like home. Section 4. Camouflage and Concealment, the Fieldcraft of Invisibility. German snipers wrapped themselves in moss-covered suits identical in principle to the modern ghillie suit. Soldiers blackened their faces with mud or charcoal before night patrols, removed anything that jingled, and moved in absolute silence, stepping with the outer edge of the foot first, testing each footfall before committing weight. Periscopes improvised from shaving mirrors allowed observation without exposure. Dummy heads of papier-mâché drew sniper fire to reveal enemy positions. These men had no tutorials. They had necessity, and the veterans who survived long enough to teach what they had learned. Section 5. When enemies kept each other alive. On the Eastern Front in 1916-17, Russian and German soldiers formed an impromptu truce. not to exchange gifts, but to hunt. Packs of wolves had begun attacking soldiers on both sides, and the threat dissolved the front line as effectively as any ceasefire. Men who had been trying to kill each other shared fires and coordinated movements through hand signals, driving the wolves back into the deep forest together. Franz Stiegler, the German pilot who escorted Charlie Brown's crippled B-17 to safety rather than shooting it down, risked court-martial to preserve the life of a helpless enemy. The two men found each other 47 years later and remained close friends until their deaths in 2008. The knowledge forged in those years of extremity did not disappear. Every time you build drainage into your camp, insulate from cold ground, move silently through terrain, or filter water through improvised media, you are practicing fieldcraft refined in the mud of Flanders. The deeper lesson is this: survival is fundamentally relational. The soldiers who endured the worst conditions did not endure alone, and in the most extraordinary moments they extended that obligation across the wire, because the alternative was to watch a fellow human being die when they had the means to prevent it. That is fieldcraft in its deepest sense. Subscribe to Fieldcraft Chronicles so you never miss an episode. Share this video with someone who values history, self-reliance, and the art of survival. This knowledge is too important to keep to yourself. Drop a comment telling us which moment from today's episode hit you hardest. The most valuable survival tool you will ever carry is the knowledge that someone else already survived what you're facing. We'll see you in the field. Fieldcraft Chronicles, where history meets preparedness.